The Dearborn Independent, February 12, 1927, Volume 27, Number 17. Mr. Ford's page of the Dearborn Independent. The crush my rival kind of competition is bound to come to grief. A boastful use of power is a sure sign that the boaster will not long possess it. When power is used to crush, the one who ultimately suffers is the user. Nevertheless, the right use of power does not mean a soft use. It means a deliberate use after due consideration of the constructive results. Power must be used for the good of the whole, not for the gratification of personal ambition or revenge. The surest way to lose power is to misuse it. A generous attitude should go with power. If not, the power will be broken. The misuse of power is a constant note in the story of mankind. We may hope that so much misuse means a greater accumulation of knowledge concerning right use. The teacher, whom we call experience, has taught every generation and many individuals that power misused is power destroyed. There has been, through the generations, a continuous growth of true power rightly used and a continuous decrease of misused power. The possession of power is not the sign of deserving it, but the right use of it is. The right use does not mean a soft use. It means such a use of it as appears to be good after a careful appeal to one's best wisdom. It means a constructive purpose even in apparently destructive action. The right use of power has nothing personal in it, either for the satisfaction of ambition or revenge. He who turns aside to use his power for personal ends or of spite or gain has set in operation the law by which his power begins to vanish. It would be impossible without being pedantic to classify all the forms of human power, but they range from that of the parent over the child or the child over the parent. The power exercised by one in any group, however, motley or obscure, to the one impressive exhibition of personal, corporate, or political power. But it is true of all of them that used for purposes of personal selfishness in any form, power vanishes. The probable reason for there seeming to be so much pettiness in power is that the contrast between the two is doubtly emphasized by power being present. Plain instinct tells us that with power goes generosity of attitude, or that it should so go. When it does not, the whole sensitive and sustaining thought of man with reference to power is broken. And yet, if one were to gather up the abuse of power now evident throughout this country alone, the conclusion would almost be forced upon one that humanity shows more character when powerless than when powerful. The instinct to crush a rival is the piteous expression of power. It is more general than we would suppose. Here is a man, for example, who runs a bank. He is that type of banker who tries to understand the principles of finance. He is not satisfied merely to master the routine of deposits and checks, loans and notes. He wants to know the deep things of money. Solve it, he can, its mystery. There are some bankers content to do the daily business with as little thought to what lies behind it as a ribbon counter clerk gives to the textile industry that lies behind the ribbon. Such a man, unsuspecting, is putting himself in a splendid position to feel the pettiness of power. For there are certain to be presented to him proposals which could originate only in the broker and gambler type of mind, and as these are sometimes closely bound up with the desires or program of official banking authority, to refuse them marks a man as not regular. He thinks for himself. He is a banker, not a clerk for a higher clique of men who call themselves bankers, but who are often in quite another line of business. Now, the story of such cases is full of illustration, which shows how a warning power proceeds to act. It has but one rule in such cases: crush him. It is war, far less honorable, less humane, more horribly unfair than that waged by military forces. The encircling movement, the treachery and coercion, the quick pouncing at moments expecting to produce the greatest confusion, the burlesque concentration upon taking away from the man all that belongs to him, would make a great novel if the people knew enough about money to be able to read it. That is one way in which power is misused, but it is not all one-sided. He who misuses loses more than he who is misused. For every misuse of power lowers the pressure of that power, stops up its source. Taking it generally, it is a misuse of power to impede a rival, because it is an interference in a field that does not belong to him by one who has no right to interfere. Every man has enough to do in his own field. There are certain laws which deal with these matters, and they deal harshly with anyone who seeks to usurp their place. The great danger of competition that has only the competitor in view is that both competitors sink to the level of altercation, while the public seeks elsewhere. Competition, in the sense of rivalry and service, is another matter. It is competition with the good of the public in view, and under this form of competition, all competitors and the public are benefited. But the crush my rival kind of doomed to trip itself for a hard fall. A pricking consciousness of power signifies that its possessor has very little. The boastful use of power signifies that the boaster will not have his power for long. A malevolent, crushing use of power signifies that, in the end, a man's own power will crush him. He will be the ultimate loser.